Now, I've never met Mayor Rudy Giuliani. From whatever I've read about him and heard about him, my preconceived opinion was that I did not like Rudy Giuliani. And I still don't know if I do like Rudy Giuliani or not, because I've never met the man. I can at least say I don't dislike him anymore, because I looked at an interview that he did where he was talking about police brutality and the Black Lives Matter thing. And when he said what I would tell my son if I were a black father, this may give me some hatred, but honestly, that's what I tell my kids. I'm sorry. I tell them they have to respect the police and they have to beware of their peers, because it's the truth. They do. I was totally expecting some outlandish left thing from left field, but I was like, oh my gosh, that's what I tell my kids. And sometimes, in so many words, that's what I tell my juvenile students. I may not word it exactly how he did, but with my children, I probably do. But I tell my students that, they have to beware of people. I tell them beware of people who don't want to take their books home. Kids that want to get in trouble, kids that want to get you in trouble. And I tell them that they have to be respectful of the police and of authority. So, I can't hate on Giuliani anymore. I have a neutral opinion, because I've never met the man. And I will say that, one other point he brought up too, which I agree with, even though he may be conservative and I'm moderate. I'm not a liberal, I'm not conservative, I'm moderate, I guess. But when he said that there's a lot of violence in the black community, I think that we get caught up a lot of times on what we think the causes are, or where we think the blame should be placed in terms of the violence in what we call black communities, or hoods or ghettos and things of that nature. Pretty much whatever I've read historically, any sort of ghetto where you have any people of any group who are in poverty or all walled off together, there's going to be crime. Wherever there was a place where there was a lot of fatherlessness and oppression, there's going to be a lot of crime and violence. It's not something that's unique to black people. It's just something that happens when you have a group that's isolated and mistreated for whatever reason. So I think we get caught up in the causes and people trying to say it's totally genetic and all this other stuff. No. What we need to do is get caught up in is. I mean, it is true. It is true that there are a lot of violence in those areas. It is true. That is what happens. And frankly, that is why a lot of people who live in those areas, or who are going to have to do work in those areas, take a martial arts class. That is why. Because there is violence in those areas. That is also why I teach at community centers. Well, to be honest, for one, I just don't have the rep to draw a storefront easily. Now, I have figured out how I could, if I wanted to open up a storefront, being as non-famous as I am, I do have an idea now how I can get people in there. And, it's basically, if I just wanted to make money, get people in there, I'd have to do the Marshall Daycare type route. I'd have to go that way and then do a lot of seminars where I'm, doing self-defense for women and self-defense for the elderly. That's something I could tap into, even as being as local famous or non-famous as I am. So I could do that. But the people I feel who need the martial arts the most are the kids who are like I was, who don't have the money to go to a storefront. And that's typically people who live in what we like to call black communities. They can't afford to pay very much with anything a lot of times. And there are people that are even doing one better than me. They teach at churches and they teach